This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, hello there. It's Jeff Cutastrophe. Welcome you to another sports catastrophe birthday boy. The problem with this one is that there are no living stars for April the 4th. So I had to go with the one from the grave, as I sometimes have to do. And this guy was an icon. He coached the Leafs, Habs, Bruins, and Devils. He was a good coach. He coached over 1,000 games in the NHL through 14 seasons. In 2005, he had to retire from coaching because of recurring cancer, which claimed his life 5 years later. So Pat Burns was born April 4th, 1952. So anyway, it was a wonderful time for him. Pat Burns always wanted to play hockey and be in the NHL, but he didn't have the skill set to make it professionally. Pat Burns became a professional police officer instead, and he worked part-time as a scout for Hall of the QMJHL before renamed it to Gatineau. Anyway, he was an assistant coach with Hall in 1984 and made his way through the ranks, becoming the head coach of the team of the Olympiques. Wayne Gretzky owned the Hall Olympiques at one time. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Anyway, so as a member of the Hall Olympique, he would coach Luc Robitaille, among others. And Hall went to the 1986 Memorial Cup final, which is the top prize for Canadian junior hockey teams, but lost to the Guelph Platers. You may be thinking, Guelph Platers? When did they change to the Storm? Well, technically they didn't. Guelph actually moved team to Owen Sound to be the Owen Sound Players before they became the Owen Sound Attack. Guelph got an expansion team a few years later with as the Guelph Storm. So anyway, Burns was offered the head coach position for Sherbrooke when they were Montreal's AHL or minor league affiliate. And Burns would hold it for 1 year in the AHL before headed to Montreal to be head coach after Jean Perron decided to retire. Burns would help Montreal out, play better defense and a better offense. So his defensive mindedness did give Montreal 53 wins, losing the Stanley Cup Finals in 6 games to the Flames. So yeah, the Habs did well, but Calgary took them out in the Stanley Cup, becoming the only team to beat the Montreal Canadiens for the Stanley Cup on Forum ice. Burns would win the Jack Adams Award, the first time he had done it. He was defensive minded, and that does work sometimes, but it didn't work other times, especially with the fact that Montreal just couldn't get over the hurdle after 1989 and get to the conference finals. Well, they had to win to the division playoffs. Montreal would always get their butts handed to them by Boston the next 3 years. After being swept by the Bruins, Pat Burns said, "Screw it, I'm done," and decided to resign. I think he was done for anyhow. Strange enough, the same day as he resigned from the Habs, he went to the Leafs. So the Leafs needed someone. Tom Watt was not the answer, and he was head coach of the Leafs. LA said that they offered him one, but he cited the Leafs' history as a factor in his decision. And it's weird, you coach the Leafs and the Habs, two giant rivals. But in his first season, it was magical. The Leafs somehow, in some way, did well. They almost got 100 points. But unfortunately, they were only third in their division as a resurgent Chicago Blackhawks and Detroit Red Wings squad took the top 2 spots in the division. So the Leafs had to play the Red Wings in the first round. Had to go to Detroit for Game 7 and win on overtime goal by Nikolai Borshevsky. Anyway, the Leafs went to the Stanley Cup semifinals, or the conference finals, if you will, and should have beaten the Kings in Game 7 on home ice. They beat the Blues in Game 7 on that home ice after the Blues took down the Blackhawks. Eternal Sanctuary. But anyway, the Leafs lost to the Kings in Game 7 on home ice and was not so happy. It's funny, the Kings wanted him to be head coach. At the NHL Awards, Burns would win his second Jack Adams in '93. He got the Leafs to the conference finals again in '94, but they lost to the Canucks. I mean, when you have to deal with the Sharks in a 7-game series instead of like 5 or 6, that cost them dearly. The Leafs had problems. And by March of '96, Pat Burns was let go. After a year away from the sport, he coached the Boston Bruins in '97, winning the Jack Adams, making him the only coach in history to win the award 3 separate times and with 3 separate franchises. It's weird how Pat Burns would coach 3 original 6 franchises. And all 3 times he won the Jack Adams Award was in his first season with the team. The Bruins had some sort of success and all that. But Burns just couldn't do his magic, so he got canned. Then he became the New Jersey Devils head coach. And no, he did not win the Jack Adams in his first year with them. But he did help the Devils win the 2003 Stanley Cup. He coached the team for 2 years. He had to quit because of cancer diagnosis. So anyway, Burns would be a police officer for 16 years, which was amazing and all that. Unfortunately, Burns' health deteriorated and all that. And, Pat Burns knew his time was coming. In 2009, he knew that the cancer would be inoperable, so he had to forgone further treatment. And passed away September 2010. Well, September 2010, there were rumors he died, but no, it was November 19th, 2010. He would have a good legacy. Pat Burns had a Facebook group launched by fans to get him into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Burns would be inducted in 2014, though, too. So Burns would coach teams, and he coached 4 franchises. He won the Jack Adams 3 times. 501 career wins in 1,019 games. A little bit too short of a career, if you ask me. But the worst part about Burns' death was that after his funeral, thieves actually broke into the widow of Pat Burns' car, stealing belongings, credit cards, and pieces of hockey memorabilia. Fortunately, though, some of the items were recovered, but unfortunately, not everything was recovered. That's kind of stupid and, bad for the family. I mean, why would you do that? I mean, if you're a hockey fan, memorabilia guy, that's too fucking desperate. And I hope that guy rotted in jail and all that, or thought about what he did. But in the end, Pat Burns was still a great coach for the Leafs and Habs and all that. He was a little defensive minded, yes, but he got results when he had to. It's just that people were just tired of defensive hockey when offensive hockey. Sometimes you just can't have both worlds. You have to have one of the two. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adu.